So the Ghoul devs have decided to finally listen to the community. They finally balanced out the game as they should have done ages ago instead of releasing shit that was completely broken and unbalanced. Now I'm not gonna lie, I might actually come back to the game now. This update might have actually saved Ghoul. So in this video I'll just be talking about the balance changes that happened yesterday and how I feel about everything. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace. So starting from the very top, we have some Jason changes. Crit can now be cancelled if parried on the first 3 hits. Now this was a very good change in my opinion, because I remember parrying the whole crit except the final hit and still getting grabbed or guard broken, which was just dumb. Also the crit hits like 5 to 4 times, and if you don't parry it, it stuns you and does like half a bar of damage. So this was a really good change. And then of course we have some Jason V1 buffs, which was needed because Jason V1 was horrible. Hopefully this change made it a lot better. Moving on, we have a Narakami buff and nerf. So stream posture damage increased, but the wind up was increased. Now I'm not gonna lie, stream did no posture damage, so fair enough. But it was very easy to parry, and increasing the wind up, people can literally just run away from it now. So I don't know how I feel about this one. Anyways, moving on, we have some Nutcracker V1 and V2 changes. So for Nutcracker V1, the M1 damage was lowered. Personally, I think this is a really good change because the M1 damage that Nutcracker did was stupid. It literally almost did a bar per M1, and if you pair that with Arata, it's not very fair. So really good change. And then Nutcracker V2 changes. M1 damage lowered, M1 speed lowered, and the most important one, crack no longer auto grips. Now I'm really happy that they removed the auto grip from Nutcracker. That auto grip was the dumbest auto grip in the game. It could literally auto grip you when you're already on the floor. So for all the people that choose for overworld elo in ranked, you bums can't do it anymore. I'm gonna skip Dojima because there's nothing really to say on that. So next we have Chi-Shi. Ragdoll reduced and animation gets cancelled on parry, preventing extra hyper armor. Crit no longer has hyper armor and cooldown increased. Now this is a heavy nerf to Chi-Shi, making the crit have no hyper armor and increasing the cooldown is crazy work, I'm not gonna lie. But reducing the ragdoll was a good change in my opinion. Moving on, we have Serate. Nothing much to say about this one either. Let's just say that Serate is completely gutted now. Next we have Fueguchi 1. Crit now cancels if the first hit is parried. Really good change in my opinion because the last part of the crit guard breaks and ragdolls if you don't parry it. But making the crit cancel on parry was a really good change. Scratched ragdoll reduced, knockback power reduced. Now I'm so happy scratched ragdoll got nerfed. That shit was so stupid. It used to stun you for like 5 seconds, I'm not even joking. But at the same time, reducing the knockback still guarantees basically anything if you're quick enough. Wind up increased on scent as well as hitbox size reduced but pushed up forward more. Once again, a really good change. Increasing the wind up on scent was needed as that shit nearly came out instantly. Also, reducing the hitbox was needed because that shit had a massive hitbox. And for the final change, the M1 damage was buffed but soft stun reduced. Also a good change, I don't mind that. Overall, though this shit is still a spec. Next we have Scorpion V1 and V2 changes. Cutting now has a bit more end lag on the end of it, and bleed was reduced on Endless Pursuit. Now I'm not gonna lie, Scorpion was a really good Quinke, but after these nerfs I don't think it's as good as it anymore. Next we have Arama. Narakami mode crit comes out faster and the range was increased on it. Now I'm not gonna lie, Arama was mid so it needed these buffs, and it was heavily buffed, so hopefully this shit is way better now. Narakami crit now procs thunder effect on enemies. Also a really good buff since it stuns now. Tempest Vault now does posture damage. Now I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what this move is or what it does, so I can't say much. But every move should be doing posture damage if blocked, so a good change I guess. Crit now shows hyper armor effects and damage lowered on Tempest Vault and chain detonation. Overall, some really good balance changes to Arama. Like I said, hopefully this shit is way better now after these changes. And finally, for the CCG side, we have IXA. Merciless now ends the animation when parried, making it less punishable. Really good change because I remember punishing people after parrying Merciless. But yeah, now it's not really punishable anymore. The tag effect now lasts 10 seconds instead of 30. Now this was needed because tag lasting 30 seconds is really dumb and I don't know why that was in the game. But yeah, reducing it to 10 seconds was a really good change. Overall, some good changes. Now moving on to the Ghoul side, we have some Yamorei changes. Now looking at this shit, it got heavily nerfed. Gutted in fact. Now personally, I thought Yamorei was a really good Kagune, but nerfing it this hard is kinda crazy. Now damage lowered all across the board was needed because the rest of them weren't really needed. I mean, some of them maybe, but like I said, gutting it this hard is kinda insane. And yes, finally, my fellow Kenv1 users, we can finally rejoice. This is what we needed. Damage buffed across the board for all skills. This is what we needed, bro. Because let's be honest, Kenv1 isn't even that good. The M1s are really slow. Now don't get me wrong, the combo potential is very good with Kenv1. But like I said, this is the buff we needed. Hopefully the devs buff it more though, since it's still not that good. Next we have some Takizawa V1 and V2 changes. Nerf soft stun on M1s to match beak, buffed all skills damage, fixed vanish hyper armor not working, and follow up slash of ravage now guard breaks. Now I'm not gonna lie, the follow up slash guard breaking was not needed. It's really hard to parry and now being unable to block it is kinda crazy, I'm not gonna lie. Now the skill damage buff was needed since Taki didn't really do any damage. Overall some decent changes. And for Takizawa V2, crit hitbox slightly reduced. Really good change in my opinion. The hitbox of the crit was dumb as it hits 3 times and the last hit guard breaks. So yeah, really good change. Taciturnity, or however you pronounce it, now comes out faster. Okay, fair enough, it was really slow, so decent change. Overall some really good changes to Taki. Moving on, we have Wing V1 and V2. M1s made slower. Now this was really needed. The M1s were too fast, I could literally M1 in the middle of anything. So this was a really good change that was needed. Surge dash feint no longer guard breaks. Also a really good change because it came out instantly and had a massive hitbox, making it basically undodgeable. So yeah, some really good changes. Next we have Mayu. Wind up increased on the X move slightly. Now I'm not gonna lie, this shit came out almost instantly, so it was needed. And M1 speed lowered slightly, also a decent change. Some good small changes overall. Moving on, we have Yomo V2. Now personally, I don't think Yomo V2 needed a buff, it was already good enough. Thundercloak Sphere Throw no longer has as much end lag. Personally, I don't think this was a good change because it's a move that has hyper armor, so it deserves a bit of end lag. Thunderclap now comes out a bit slower. A really good change since this shit literally came out instantly. Hitbox improved on detection for Thunderclaw. This was also needed because the hitbox was dumb for Thunderclaw. It literally didn't match the animations. Next we have some Noro V2 buffs, which were also really needed. The Varro has less end lag now, a really good change since Noro has a lot of end lag on basically every move and is easily punishable. Crit cooldown reduced, also a really good change since the crit cooldown was really long. Overall some good buffs to Noro V2. Now moving on, we have Eto V1. Shards and frenzies are now blockable, really good change. The shards not being blockable was crazy work. Crit travels a bit slower, also a nerf that was needed. The crit was very quick and touched up the lingering hitbox in rage mode. Was also needed since the hitboxes, especially the shard hitboxes, were really weird. Next we have Initio V2. Embrace wind up increased. This was needed as it was basically guaranteed after anything. It came out extremely fast, damage decreased, also a good change. Frenzy damage reduced, this was also needed since the last hit guard breaks and overall the move did a lot of damage. Moving on, we have Hinami. Crit now comes out faster, this was needed I guess since it did come out kinda slow. Spinal hitbox increased, stun time reduced. Now this was needed because the hitbox for Spinal was extremely small and if you did get hit by it, it didn't stun you as much. Segmentation initial hit stun reduced. This was also needed because after the first hit people could just roll and run away from it, which was dumb. So really good change. Ward damage decreased and cooldown increased. Now yeah, the move was a 3.5 bars of damage if fully hit and the cooldown was extremely small. So yeah, overall some good balance changes. And yes, we have Eto V2 nerfs. This is what we were all looking for. Because Eto V2 is the biggest spec to ever get released. I don't know how this shit got through testing. Anyways, M1 speed lowered and bleed removed from M1s. This shit was fucking needed. The M1s were as fast as Arata M1s, if not faster. And the M1s doing bleed when they were that fast is really dumb. Overall damage nerfs on skills, this was also needed as all of the moves basically did a bar or more. Clawing pounds dash distance reduced, this was really needed as it could literally catch you from across the map. Eto V2 got the nerfs it deserved. Next we have Beaked V2. Now personally, Beaked V2 is extremely good and needed some nerfs. Crit hitbox reduced and critical M2 no longer guard breaks. Some really good nerfs that were needed. Peck slam M2 hitbox reduced was really needed. The hitbox was way too big. Overall some good balance changes to Beaked V2. Moving on we have Shachi. Now Shachi needed some buffs as it's not even that good. M1 damage buffed, all skills and crits damage increased. Honestly, not much to say about this, just some casual buffs. And finally we have Sukiyama. It's a decent Kagune that needed buffs. Overall damage buffs on skills. Exsanguis now comes out faster. Everserande knockback reduced. Once again, not much to say about this, just some casual buffs once again. And now we have the other stuff like the skill box nerfs and buffs and certain CCG moves. So first we have aerial crit hitbox reduced. Now I don't know how I feel about this because I can barely land it anymore. Personally, I think it got nerfed a bit too hard. Shadow drop no longer gives hunger, shadow drop has fewer counter frames and now it has end like on miss. This was really needed as it was one of the best, if not the best counters in the game, and it giving you hunger was really dumb. Dragon kicks hitbox fixed. Dragon kick damage increased. Honestly, I got both because it did do little damage. Scalpel drive cooldown increased to 20 seconds. This was also needed since it had a very low cooldown. Bite cooldown increased. Honestly, this is one of the worst skill boxes, but increasing the cooldown was needed for most skill boxes since they literally had no cooldown. Raw cooldown increased to 25 seconds. Shiver timer reduced on raw. Raw hitbox reduced. Literally got the nerfs it deserved. Literally the dumbest skill box in the game. Mutilation end like increased and damage increased. Not much to say, casual balance changes. But yeah, that's all. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.